Live and direct, we come and never pre-recorded, with information that will never be reported. Disregard the mainstream, media distorted. We come and listen and support it.
Hey, what's up, beautiful people? This is Zach Sweat with Eternal Strength. Thank you so much for tuning in to Eternal Strength Pirate Radio, and please be sure to check back each week as new episodes will be released.
Today, here on, well, I was going to say live and direct, but it's not live and direct. Here on a beautiful Friday afternoon, we have Tamara Ancona, who I have known for at least 10, maybe longer, 10 years. And I knew, so here's what I remember about Tamara, is I was working for a company, Vive, Dave Hers, Willow Rubin, cutting my teeth on being a therapeutic mentor, learning about therapy, psychotherapy, finding my voice as a counselor, and had worked with Tamara, who was an ed consultant and was referring families and working with a lot of young people in family dynamics. And then we ended up out at a dinner, and it was a large dinner, and I think it was IECA, and I got a steak, and I was eating, and then Tamara, to the entire table, proceeded to sing my praises, and I was very embarrassed. And she was like, Wes can meet with any young person. It could be a young person who's on the autism spectrum. It could be somebody struggling with substance abuse. It could be somebody with this, and I was just like, but from that moment on, you and I have connected. I trust you implicitly, your heart, your soul, the work that you do, everything that you do in the field, and you've always been extremely supportive of my growth into private practice, starting the doctoral program, opening the doors of Eternal Strength, the earliest days of Eternal Strength when it was Wild West and we were still getting our grounding and our footing, and now here you are 2 years after our 2-year anniversary, still showing up, part of our community, and we're willing to come onto the podcast today, and you weren't nervous at all. Is that true? Is that correct? And we have her hooked up to a polygraph as well. Are you nervous? Scale of 1 to 10. Tamara Ancona, go.
How was that? I couldn't find the words. How was that? Thank you for that introduction. That was pretty awesome. And I'm just excited to be here and to see, even the last time I was here, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months ago, and to see just how it, the added feel and what more you all have done here. So, yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being with us. And Kara's with us, our clinical director. And it's grown organically, but we give all the credit to the young people who they're shaping. They're kind of like, we're going to change this room and we're going to make it this and we want to do this. And so they're leading us in this mutual collaborative way.
I'm glad I wasn't saying this because that would have really made me look like I was really nice.
But come on. It's collaborative. So what I would love is if you could give us just a little bit of your history, your start in the field, your work as an educational consultant, and then where you are currently and what your focus has been. Okay.
So for an ADHD brain that stops at number 2 item, you might have to tell me 3 and 4.
Absolutely. Tell us about your earliest entry into the mental health field.
Okay. I was actually working in corporate America doing the corporate ladder gig, and at that time was in a position that would have some international flair to my work, and got pregnant, and we were having our first baby, my husband and I, and I'm thinking, why would I want to go internationally having this child? And my whole value structure changed with work. And I said, I need to have more meaning in my work. Not that I didn't have it back then, but it was just different. I had an undergrad in sociology and Spanish, and I thought, I'm going to go back to my roots and go into the counseling profession, go back and get my master's degree. Went and did that. Got off the corporate train, went ahead and got licensed as a professional counselor. And I think I romanticized the world of psychotherapy. Wanting to maybe pick and choose what kind of clients I saw or the effect that I could help in their lives or facilitating change. And came across this field of educational consulting. It was just happenstance. And from that, peeked into it wasn't educational consultant in terms of placement like we do today. It was just there was a lady here in Atlanta who did some testing, assessments, and feedback to individuals with regard to continuing ed dollars. And she trained me, but I love this work. It was kind of the assessment piece and the guidance and helping piece. And I had good skill set for that as well. So from that, was introduced to the world of therapeutic placement and college placement and career placement and boarding school placement through a friend of mine who we worked together in our careers and actually went to graduate school together. And she was down in Tampa, Florida at the time, and she was going to a similar journey as I was. Like, oh man, mental health world and getting licensed was just really hard work, right? They put you in the greenest of all green individuals, get placed in some of the most absolutely serious and intensive environments. So she reached out to do some educational consulting investigation to see if there's some down there. And she came across Dr. Janet Greenwood, who was down in Tampa. She's a very well-known education consultant and psychologist. She doesn't practice anymore. She's retired. But my friend Leanne Sprates plugged in with her. And here this whole world of placement educational consulting was opened through her. Mm-hmm. And at that time, a year or two later, my friend's husband was moving back to Atlanta. Janet Greenwood was proliferating her educational consulting practice, and we partnered with her to open up a location here in Atlanta.
Awesome. What year was that?
I was in 1999.
So what was the climate like? Because I know a little bit about the history of wilderness therapy and therapeutic boarding schools and residential, and it's changed so much.
Yes.
But was that was when there was a tremendous amount of wilderness programs.
And the model of wilderness was very different. So the evolution of the profession is pretty young.
Yeah.
And educational consulting is maybe 40, 45 years young. And back then there weren't any therapeutic type of residential placements. I mean, if they were, managed care was guiding that into the mental health facilities. And then as the private pay profession started to evolve, when managed care was coming into the world and saying, you can only go to this place for this amount of time and over here for this. And that's not how you do humans, right? And mental health. So many of those professional leaders left and kind of some of this, it's kind of how the profession, sprang up, is because they said we could do this the way we need to do it. And so wilderness back then was pretty raw. They were like a 3-week, intensive. A different type of student who you see today than you did back then.
Yeah.
And the model was very different. But yes, so the landscape it has evolved and it has changed to today, where we have a whole continuum of care from a wonderful, resource and facility like you all have here at Eternal Strength.
Shout out Eternal Strength.
Yes, all right. That could be either on that front end or back end of the work of the clients I work with. But perhaps there is a way for the students to not need residential treatment by having an experience like this, the intensive outpatient type of model that you present. You're 2 years young. We haven't had these beforehand, right? So we have that from an outpatient standpoint to then anything residential therapeutic, from therapeutic boarding schools to residential treatment programs. Some are short term, some are long term, some are treatment specific.
Yeah.
Some are. We have full psychiatric assessment facilities. To outdoor therapeutic wilderness programs. So that continuum of care is. Really what that therapeutic placement world would look like.
Yeah, and that's always been your heart, Tamara. Like, I think about from the moment we met, and I always I freaked out on Dave one time at IECA because I was done with the marketing aspect of it, and I was like, whatever, man. I do good work. Holler at me. I'm done talking about it and trying to. But I would meet people like you in the field that I could see your heart, and I could see that what you cared about was the family and the young person, and everything else was secondary. And so even now, as you talk about the continuum of care and moving through, because when a family is struggling, time and time again, I've had these families just feel overwhelmed. I mean, you go online and you look at-risk youth or troubled teen and needing help, and then all these things start to pop up, and you have no advocate or anybody that can help you maneuver through a tremendous amount of resources. And many of these places are kind of throwing and utilizing jargon that the parents may not even understand, and they have no idea what an ed consultant is, what intensive outpatient, PHP, CBT, DBT, the different methodologies. And so to have somebody that can come in and say, I'm an expert in this arena, I can help find placement for your family, you can work with me, and I can be part of that continuum of care. That's what you've always cared about. And you've always stayed in touch. And so it's always been like, I did a horrible job at tracking who referrals were coming from, because I was just doing my thing, private practice and rocking and rolling. You'd be like, are you still seeing so-and-so? And I'd be like, you sent me that person? That's awesome. And then, but you've always tracked the long-term follow-through, and that's what's really the most important, is the continuum of care. Because in each one of these environments, the young person and the family can do well, but does it continue, and does it get applied even once that IOP program is done, once that wilderness has concluded, once the at-home care has happened? What happens to that family, and how do they continue to get support? And so you stay involved every step of the way now.
Yeah, and I think, just to your point, when parents have a struggling teen or young adult, it is overwhelming. They don't know where to turn. They don't know, oftentimes they're dealing with the whole cyclone of what's going on in their child's life. Their world is upside down. They, referred over here or over there. This person, showed them this site or that site. And is this good? Is it not? Where they start to just, start to even second guess themselves more and more, as they're going to trying to at least even stabilize their world, let alone get their child help. And having someone, I couldn't imagine doing that without someone like myself. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing my own work without having that clinical degree and that background, because that is, our kids are coming to us with many more complex manifestations of what's going on in their world. They're living in a much greater, in a dangerous world as well. Certainly not like what I grew up in. And you have, don't even add COVID to the mix, and that's what, we were seeing and have been seeing. So these parents are from my perspective, at a very difficult decision point in their life. Not only having this struggling child or young adult, yet at the same time, what do we do here? And when you're faced with looking at perhaps something residentially, that could be extremely, extremely frightening.
Absolutely.
So as part of the work and what I do with families is help them navigate those waters. Yep. They don't know a lot of times if they need to send their child a life vest, a lifeline, a lifeboat, a life copter. Maybe some kids we've seen them, they need all of them, right? Yep. So someone like myself can help assess that situation, because we have to have the best understanding of that child first before we can then help guide that family and direct them in a different trajectory.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful that you have the ability to comfort the parents in making a decision through the amount of knowledge you have, because I had never really worked with ed consultants at all. And so I didn't know until I've gotten to know you that you can do that clinical assessment, but then you don't just know the types of facilities, but you're actually tuned in to who is there and who leads that team currently. And the landscape of healthcare is so difficult because the terminology is hard enough, but then there's so many people moving around from place to place. So I might be familiar with a program a couple years ago, but that doesn't necessarily mean that staffing-wise it's the same program today.
Yeah.
And so for you to be able to do this individualized assessment, clinical assessment of the kid and the family, and then compare that to the type of place, but then breaking it all the way down to who is actually there that can work with the family. But then being able to communicate all of that in a way that gives so much comfort to the parents. Because I sit with them a lot of times before they've spoken to you, and the stress is painful to watch. I mean, they like feel completely overwhelmed. And so I like the piece of this well-rounded kind of empowering through education and all of that.
I always like to say that you have your finger on the pulse.
Oh, well,
that's my favorite tagline.
That's true. He says that every time. She has her finger on.
I mean,
it.
it's the truth, because it's like I'll hear some anecdotal information about particular programs, and to Kara's point, I may know of that program 3 years ago,
right?
And the work that those two families that went there did. I don't know the current clinical director. I don't know the current clinical staff. I don't know where the milieu that they're currently serving and in what capacity. And you have your finger on the pulse and know exactly what's going on, and are looking to pair these families and these young people with the best choice program fit of what's going to work for them. And my stupid analogy is like when I worked in CD shops, like when I was working in the music store, I knew everything about the top 25 Billboard pop like culture, what was going on. I could tell you what album was selling the best. If somebody came in and they were like, give me this, I'd be like, let me take it. And then I stopped working in CD shops, and I was totally out of the loop. I still listen to music, but I didn't know it like I knew it when I was engulfed in it. And so that finger on the pulse piece is amazing. And then I got to say one other thing, and then I'll shut up. The ethical integrity that you operate from is what has always impressed me. And so your ability to say, I am one option in the field of educational consultants. There are others. They are my colleagues. They do good work as well. Here is how I approach it. Here's the work that I do. But what is most important for your family is not necessarily working with me. It's getting good care and landing where you need to. And we operate the same way. Every single family that calls here, it's like, let me start by saying the number one goal is making sure that your family gets the care that you guys need. If that's with us, rock and roll, awesome. If it's not, let our team help you land where you need to. And you operate from that same ethical integrity and character. And that's what I've always gravitated to and appreciated.
It resonates with me too. You know, that child's best interest has to be at the heart and soul of the work that we do. Your work, my work, anyone else that's in this, in this healthy, in our.
I freak out. It turns into like, what was the one news clip with Bill
Murray? Or am I dating myself?
No, not Bill Murray.
Everything
it's the
Bill Murray is awesome.
Who is the guy that's like super Republican, like suited up? Bill. No.
Bill Riley.
Yes.
Bill O'Reilly.
There is a clip of Bill O'Reilly, and they are doing the cue cards.
Yeah.
And he can't read it right, and he loses it. They're about to have Sting do a performance, and he's like, "I can't read it. I can't." And he goes, "Fuck it, I'll do it myself." And he rips off the mic, and he does. It's my favorite clip to watch.
And
I
then
send
he
it to
plays
all
the Sting song.
Yeah, and then they close out with Sting.
He like pushes Sting, grabs it.
I dream of rain.
Well, I'm glad you didn't do that. I'm glad you didn't do that because I was the one at fault hitting that mic,
that
right? But back to the, back to what
ethical integrity.
Yes, I do that. Well, part of what I was going to say too on the front end of what you said, that I'm so glad, as I think we're all glad, that COVID is something that is a word we don't want to say anymore, and hopefully in the past, as at least the impact that it's had on all of us, right, is behind us. But I'm so energized because I'm able now to reconnect and have those site visits, like actually go on campus. This profession, the private pay parent choice profession, it's nationwide. It's not citywide. It's not statewide. It's not region-wide. I did it again. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But to be able to get back on the plane or in the car and drive to and actually visit with, feet on the ground, it's just been so, it's necessary part of my work. And I spend about 30% of my time doing that. But through COVID, that has mainly been done virtually.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hasn't been bad, you know, but at the same time, keeping your pulse, you know, your finger on the pulse is so critical, because programs change just like any other business. You know, you could go through cycles, and there are times you need to let those cycles change. I could share you, the landscape has changed, you know, where we had a lot of therapeutic boarding schools over the course of years. It's
like
dwindling. Yeah, and some of those might be just treatment specific for just middle school boys or middle school girls, or those on the autism spectrum, or not. So it is changing, and it's continuously changing. And so I really appreciate the collaborative work that we get to do together, because you know, my kids are, you know, coming home from these programs, and they've had life-changing, you know, trajectories. Their families are, you know, feeling a sense of hope again, and there's reunification. And I'm not saying everything is, you know, Pollyanna and great, but how do we keep that momentum going, and how do we help them continue to reintegrate back home? Maybe new school, maybe old school. How do they continue to get that support where they feel like, you know, I've had enough, I don't need to do anymore. But they still need that support, and their family may need that support as well to reintegrate. And to have a cool place like this where there's no, you know, I remember your words of saying when you had this brainchild that you wanted a hub and a place where these students can come and families could come, where, you know, there's not a stigma around mental health. You know, there's, and a place to continue to get healthy and learn how to do it within the community. Like, this is where you know, their boots are on the ground.
Absolutely.
And let's learn, how do I do this? And so, it's I don't know how we function without eternal strengths beforehand.
We're grateful.
We're watching a really cool shift right now too, with the kids that are coming back and have been programming with us for a while. The language is changing in a way that I'm really excited about. And instead of saying, like, I went to treatment at Eternal Strength, more and more, it's like, this is a thing that I've been involved with. And so we're moving in that direction, where it's like, hopefully all of our families look at this place and they're like, we were involved with this place for this long, or this is a place where I did this kind of work, instead of like, I went to treatment, or I was treated at, or, you know, this was my length of stay. That more kind of community. But having that support, I think it's rough, especially when families are coming out of a residential or a wilderness program. If they don't have the support after, and then things start to go sideways, it hits in such an emotional way, and they take it as such a big failure. And a lot of times it's like, it's not this failure. You just didn't have a very smooth kind of on-ramp to a longer term pattern. But when the kid will come in and be like, I don't know why it fell apart, like, and take it really like it's on them. And so it's cool to figure out how do we collaborate so that they kind of have this kind of exit ramp out of a really immersive care back into their community. And then what does that look like to just be able to follow them wherever that goes?
And it's that really Kara and I have like very big aspirations, and okay, Kara's out. We'll close up.
Bye, Kara.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But Kara and I, to her point, was speaking about language. We have these giant, I won't say giant, but it's long term, and it's going to be paced out how we do it. But like how people think about themselves, how families use language to talk about mental health. I always think about this quote that says the most powerful force in the human psyche is how you describe yourself to yourself, and what these young people are telling themselves about who they are and identity and constructing that. I think we're very proud that Eternal Strength has become a community center, a hub, a place to go do holistic growth work instead of simply a mental health treatment center, where it's like we're a community use center with this blend of mental health therapeutic support, but it's really unique to watch the youth use it in the way that they want to. And to Kara's point, it's the collaborative piece where, I mean, Tamara, when I think about it, they built it. Like I was there, but I was listening. I was super comfortable in private practice, but like young people were like families were coming in and parents were like, we've done 2 IOPs, we've done 2 wilderness programs, we've done some aftercare. I had worked in transition aftercare. And then I started to ask young people, like, if you could go anywhere you wanted and do it, what would it look like? And we started to build it. And then it became really important to go, it can't be a 3-week, a 3-month, a 6-month. It's got to be month to month, and it's got to be customizable in terms of engagement so the family can dial up and dial down, and there's no end date because every family's so different. And so what does that look like, that transition? Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a blend of those two, and it's young people who still get tethered to our community, are coming to all the community events, and can dial back on the immersive care, but still have this really tight-knit group to stay connected with. So it's been beautiful, but having advocates like you and people that trust us and building relationship and working as a village and a multidisciplinary community has been the best thing, because we have to have somebody that we can go, there needs to be a higher level of care. How do we get to that? Who do we trust? And how can we make sure that this family gets the care that they need and they get plugged into the continuum of care where they need to be?
Or a lower level, lesser level of care, such as would be your, eternal strength. But, I just, I know we'll be closing up here shortly, but just to
thank you, because I go all day.
And I tap on something that you said as well as, it's so important for us to really listen to what we're hearing. Like when you just defined and said, you're listening to what the students were telling you, and that's how a lot of eternal strength evolved, right? Hearing the needs out there. I think the same thing with me and my practice, or anyone who does business and does it well. You have to know what those needs are. And I see our families and when I say families, I don't just mean that child, right? The whole family. It could be with the parents, it could be with the siblings who really, are tripped up in ways that they don't know what those resources are out there, whether they're here locally or across the United States or wherever. But I love that we have resources. I love that we have them like you, and not just a resource, but the quality of work that you all do and the quality of help and how you work, that individualization piece, because that's what I do too. That's so important to each family is different.
It's that
There's
family.
no
What does that family need?
Exactly.
Yep.
And then how do you hone in on that and help them?
Awesome.
Tamara, so hey,
you're awesome.
I'm still tooting your horn. I wouldn't be here if that weren't the case. So.
Well, I'm grateful for our long-term friendship, for you being a tremendous colleague, and us working professionally together, and to just know where your heart is and how much you care. So tell everybody, if they in any way, shape, or form need to get additional resources, if they're struggling and they need somewhere to start, how do they get a hold of you?
Yes.
And we'll put up links and have everything so they can contact, but what's the easiest way?
Okay. I tell them my website is www.tagcounseling, just like the game, TAGCOUNSELING.com.
Cool. Tagcounseling.com.
Tagcounseling.com, yes. Or by Googling my name, Tamara Ancona, educational consultant. And, my contact, all my information is on there, unless you want me to give my phone number.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No. They can go do that.
Yeah, they can. Thank you.
Now, do you have a TikTok?
No.
Would you like us to start one for you?
I think you know. I don't need a TikTok.
No, I don't know if anybody does.
Whew,
Gary V. Have you ever watched Gary V's stuff?
No, but my one of my daughters, she sends me. She's like into this. They educated me. Let's put it this way: I got educated on TikTok over Christmas.
Okay.
And I was like, now who has time for that? Like, I certainly don't have time.
Yeah.
So since then, my one daughter will send me different things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hysterical. That is pretty cool. Like, it was just funny kind of thing.
Yep.
So, but no, I don't. No.
We have an Eternal Strength TikTok.
You do?
And it's ridiculous.
Did the students create it? Like,
no, it's me
okay,
at home with my daughters.
Okay.
Doing stupid stuff and doing the TikTok challenges and all that stuff. But it's fun and it's cool, but it can become a rabbit hole. And if you look at stuff, like I've curated mine in a way that it's like cool lectures from Alan Watts and like growth-oriented stuff and Eckhart Tolle and like just because that's what I look at. So anytime I hop on it for 5 minutes, it's not just crap.
Okay.
It's usually like some decent stuff. But yeah, you got to be careful.
Well, I feel like I'm in the know because I didn't say, "Oh, do you mean a clock?" All right, on that
You gotta get a clock.
On that, we'll just how's that?
Tamara Ancona, thank you for coming on Eternal Strength Pirate Radio. We're gonna have you back on at some point, but this is awesome, and I appreciate your time and your energy and everything.
Oh, thanks, Wes. Right back at you, my friend.
Rock and roll.
Okay,
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Hey y'all, this is Wes. Thank you so much for tuning in to Eternal Strength Pirate Radio. Head on over to eternalstrengthatl.com and don't forget to check out cosmiclamb.org, our 501c3 nonprofit, where you can make a donation and help us fulfill the mission of bringing radical youth work to any and all families in need.